watching orbits. Orbits, definitely, yeah. Loss procedure, yes, you want to stay around the same feature. When we start getting into showing people stuff, that's when it's going to start to collapse. And okay, you're not going to tell students this. I'm just telling you guys so you understand where the flaws are in this brief in regards to being an actual commercial pilot and doing things like photography, search and rescue whale watching. So, talk to the student about, yes, these are times when we want to look at something and stay nearby it, right? So that's when a constant readiness tool would apply. That's what I want to hear you say. I've talked to other instructors, so you talked to Matt about this one, and he thinks a lot of the stuff in this mass brief is absolutely redundant, which I agree with, and we'll talk about that as we go. Ian did a bit of photography when he first got a CPL, and he said he was flying real estate agents around to properties so they could get some photos of it, right? And he wouldn't do a constant radius turn, he would do what the photographer was telling him to do. Oh, can you just bank it a little bit more? Oh, can you just go a little bit lower? Can you hold this angle for me? You know, a constant radius turn is, we know, if we've got 30 knots, there's going to be times where your wing's going to be in the way, and times when your wing's not going to be in the way. So just consider that in regards to trying to show someone something, as a constant radius turn is probably not the best way to do it. Okay? Anyway, let's carry on with what we're actually trying to teach today. So the big thing here we're going to be talking about is wind, right? How does wind affect our turn radius? Once again, this should be nothing new. It's part 3 students have got a PPL. So tailwind, what does it do to ground speed? It's going to increase it. Therefore, what's going to happen to turn radius for a set angle of bank, right? Our radius will increase. The reverse is going to happen with a headwind. So headwind's going to decrease our ground speed, therefore decreasing our turn radius at that given angle of bank. So that should tell us what we need to do, right? If these are at a given angle of bank, we should be adjusting our angle of bank. Here's a picture I'm sure you guys went through when you did your turning of. So what's going to happen, that wind's going to push us over, and we're going to, like, here's our feature we're trying to look at. If we're not accounting for wind and we're just holding 20 degrees, 30 degrees angle of bank, we're getting pushed over that way. So you can kind of ignore all the flaws I talked about in the last one and tell the student, yeah, look, we're trying to take photos of the house. If we're not accounting for wind, we're getting pushed away from the house. We can't see it anymore. That's not good. So what we need to do is we need to adjust our angle of bank throughout our turn in order to keep that radius constant throughout. Which means with that wind in that picture there, we're going to have let's just do it as animation. As we come around into a headwind, our ground speed is going to decrease, and as our ground speed decreases, our angle of bank needs to decrease. As we come into a tailwind, our ground speed is going to increase, therefore we need to increase our angle of bank. So that's kind of the golden rule. Higher ground speed, higher angle of bank. Lower ground speed, lower angle of bank. That's all you really need to remember, right? In between, so in this point here and this point here where it's all going to be crosswind, you're just thinking of a medium amount of angle of bank between these 2 points. So if we're holding, let's say, 30 degrees of angle of bank here, and we're holding 10 degrees angle of bank here, let's go for 20 at these points in. Just kind of think of your medium and just assess it as you go. So this is where it's going to get a little bit repetitive and redundant. You shouldn't need to spend much time on these slides. Should a PPL student know how to figure out what the ones do? Yes. It's just important we make sure it's accurate. So they should know all this stuff. It should just be questions. How do you determine wind? The reason drift is highlighted at the end there is because we are now going to go through how to calculate drift, which once again they should know. So this is where I agree with Matt, where these slides aren't really necessary for this maths brief, but just make sure you're asking questions, you know. Although we expect the student to know, let's make sure they know. So calculate drift. We're going to find a line feature and kind of fly it and see what happens. So in this case, we're following that road and we're getting pushed to the right. So what does that tell us about the wind? What could the possible winds be? Coming from the left of the screen? Yeah. So those are our possible winds from that one bit of drift we've recognised. Now, we can fly on that other bit of road and see what happens to the aircraft. So now, which possible wind are we likely to be encountering? From top to bottom, 1, 2, or 3? 1, 2, 3. 1, right? So now we've determined our wind using drift. So like I said, this shouldn't be new to the student. I go through this with precautionaries. It's just a recap. And yeah, a PPL pilot should know this, which is why it's a little bit. But we've narrowed the wind down, we know what the wind's doing. If we won't need to do this, if we saw a big smokestack, right? Or if we used any of those other things for our local knowledge, and had an idea of what it was before I left. Alright, human factors. Nothing new there. Reminder of threat and error management for those hazards and illusions of low flying, because this is a low flying maneuver. Just revise, right? It's all revision here. Revision, revision, revision. Yep, you're very happy with that. I'm breezing through it because you guys know this, but I'm expecting you guys to ask us questions when you're delivering this. So just think about what kind of questions you can ask. So, the air exercise. This is kind of where it starts off with actual new stuff for the student, which is in the third to last slide. Or second to last, sorry. Right, assess wind direction. Yep, we've done that. Pick a feature to fly around in 4 points of equal distance, upwind, downwind, and to either side. Now, once again, this you don't always need, but this is just extra things that are going to help the student achieve a good constant radius too. Sometimes I'll tell the student, pick your features after you've started flying around the feature. Find your feature, start flying around it, and as you're coming around, pick your 4 features. Don't sit there at 2,000 feet going, there's my feature, okay, there's a point, there's a point, there's a point, and then go, oh, there's no 4th point over here, okay, I can't use that. Silly, right? So, pick your feature to fly around, and sometimes it might be given to you. You might be told to fly around that feature. Fly a beam the feature in the downwind position and place the feature near the wingtip. Fly around your 4 points. Now, those 4 points that you pick around your feature may also not be equal distance. Use them as references. One you might be flying right over, one you might have on your left side as you fly nearby it. Don't expect to have a perfect setup. So it's not always going to look like this, right? We're flying over that tree, we're flying over that house, we're flying over that intersection. It might be that you kind of have to just pick points and use guides as you go of like a line of trees over here, you know, that you're going to be flying nearby. This kind of sets up like, or says it like it's going to be a perfect situation, which it never is. So just make sure that's clear to the student. So flying around your 4 references, your 4 points to help you maintain. So we've got a really convenient feature we want to fly around, which is this bunch of smoke. So that tells us straight away what the wind's doing as well. 2 birds, 1 stone, right? So we've assessed the wind. Not really in the downward position yet, that's fine. Terrible as well, because that doesn't really help you. But anyway, a circular path is achieved with our angle of bank is adjusted in relation to the ground speed. So, what is our ground speed going to be like at this point here?
Quite fast. Oh, sorry, which way are we flying around there?
Yep, look at your wing.
Oh, sorry, it'd be quite slow.
So this is going to be our lowest ground speed in this term. Therefore, what do we need our angular bank to be at its highest or lowest? Lowest? So cool. At this point here, we have our lowest angular bank due to our lowest ground speed. What about this point here? What's our angular bank going to be like at this point? Going to be increasing? Yep. So angular bank starts increasing here. What about this point? The top one.
Yeah, it's greatest.
Cool, at its greatest. Our ground speed's going to be at its greatest, so our angular bank is going to be at its greatest. And then as we get to this point, our angular bank is going to be decreasing again, eh? Cool. So that can mix people up if you start talking about increasing angular bank and decreasing angular bank. As long as they know that this is going to be their shallowest and this is going to be their highest, they should be able to figure that out with the rest. So just be careful about just saying this is increasing, this is decreasing. It's easier to say most, least. And then it comes up from here anyway. So you see how it just kind of says medium angular bank rather than increasing or decreasing. Which is fine, it's good to talk about. Yes, your angular bank's going to be increasing here. Just think about what the main point is. And that's the end of it. Not a long one, right? So don't be as negative as I was to the students. Just make sure it's really clear. I mean, point it out a little bit, but don't go to them as in-depth as I did about the fact that this is bullshit. Just say it might not always be the case for these, but as what we're practicing today, it's just a constant radius term. So we can apply to these situations, maybe not always. Any questions about that one? Okay, I'm only talking 15 minutes. Because as mentioned, I did skip a couple because I was like, yeah, just ask questions here, so it might take you 15 to 20. But yeah, not a big one. Questions?